Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to the next edition of the Putting the Human into Technology podcast. My name is Gethin Ellis, and today I'm joined by Chris Taylor. Chris is the Group IT Delivery Manager for JPM Group. Welcome, Chris.
Morning.
Thanks, Chris. Right, I'll pass things over to you first up. Chris, you want to just start by telling us a little bit about yourself and the organisation and business that you work for?
Sure. Yeah, my name's Chris Taylor. I'm the Group IT Delivery Manager at JPM Group. And JPM Group is predominantly an insurance broking business. I'm possibly a little bit biased, but we're very good at it. We're a top 30 UK insurance broker, and we're growing. We're growing by acquisition, and we're also growing by organic growth.
So organic growth, and you're buying up businesses as they go
Yeah.
as well. That's cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I guess that's having done some work in insurance for a long time and been in businesses where acquisition is thing. The IT takes a managing in that.
It's growing. Yeah, it's growing. And certainly our conversations have been around how do we take a business that, when I joined started off at 180 or so employees to a business that's now at over 800 and is going to carry on growing. How does technology play a really important part in that? So yeah, it's certainly an exciting time to be part of it.
Cool. Well, that gets into our first real question then, Chris. How has technology and data transformed how the JPM Group approaches its mission? What role does it play in the acquisitions? What role does it play in the organic growth? What role does it play in delivering value and services for your customers?
Yeah, and we're all about that. We're all about making sure that we attract and retain, the very best talent across all of our teams, and because ultimately that helps us deliver an excellent client service at the end of the day. And technology is no different. And in terms of our team and how we operate and how we talk about IT in the business, we are really clear that technology doesn't drive the business. Technology is an enabler to help the business do what it needs to do and go in the direction it wants to go in. And very, very rarely will we say, that can't be done, or we're not going to do it. We want it to work like this. And I say rarely because, there are times when you need to say, actually, based on security, based on whatever, that's not the right way to do that.
Yeah.
But 9 times out of 10, it's the business that drives where we're going with it. And we take a quite a good approach to how we integrate businesses once they agree to be part of the JPM Group. And what's important to us is that all the way through that, we are supporting the people that are using the technology.
Yeah.
It would be really easy for me and the team to come in overnight, change it all, and disappear again in the morning before anybody even sets foot in the office. In reality, it's not very helpful. It's not how we like to do things, because we want to do the right thing by our customers and ultimately by our colleagues. So technology is massively changing our approach to lots of things across the business, and for us in terms of integrations, how we integrate them is equally as important.
Okay, cool. You mentioned there you've grown from like 180 to 800 people, and you see, it feels like you've got IT pretty well aligned with the business strategy, which I guess then allows it to deliver real value for the business. Just out of curiosity, how big is the IT department of those 800 people? What's the sort of ratio?
It's very small,
Right.
and we keep it intentionally small. Because our view is that we like to outsource IT to the experts.
Right.
I can't be an expert in everything. I can't be an expert in security and telephones and networking and device lifecycle and everything that involves everything that IT touches at some point. No person can be an expert. So we get the experts in to help us do that. But what that enables us to do, and this is really key to some of our growth and some of our speed at which we can deliver some of this stuff, is that it enables us to better represent the business and do that translation between IT experts in the business to get us to where we need to be much quicker.
Gotcha.
And I think, one of the things that's helped us really do that, on that journey from 100 colleagues up to 800, is around taking the time a couple of years ago to think about what our IT estate needs to look like. So, we all know that the IT infrastructure that you have in place to support a business of 100 people, 200 people is vastly different to the infrastructure that you need in place to support a business of 800, 1,000, 2,000 people. And so we took some time to make sure that the solutions that we were putting in place or that we wanted to put in place were scalable. They were going to support our growth. They were going to enable us to do things quickly. There was no point having a piece of technology that A, wouldn't scale, but also B, could scale, but not very quickly and not very sensibly, or not very cost effectively. Also, so we spent a lot of time putting that in place, and we did that in the first 12 months, 18 months, which was great. And so now we're off. It's about supporting the people.
Cool, and it's no doubt when you're bringing on the acquisitions and when you're implementing that technology, there'd be some challenges, I guess. Just given the journey you've been on, what's the biggest challenge that you've faced when it comes to implementing new technology, or perhaps onboarding an acquired company, and how do you overcome those challenges?
Yeah, it's good, really good question. We like to make sure that integrations into JPM Group are as seamless as possible. From everybody's perspective, we spend a lot of time thinking about it, a lot of time talking about it, and I guess the challenge that we've got from that perspective is every business that we acquire is different. They've got different technologies, they've got different ways of working, and that's nobody's fault. It's something that we have to work through, and so we also understand that people working in those businesses, whether you're part of a 50 people business or a 3-person business, or you're just on your own, you have a different experience of IT change. And we spend a lot of time making sure that where possible, people are comfortable with the changes that's going to happen. And, I talk to the team all the time about the fact that you will never see us on site on integration day pulling cables out, running around, being those people that look like we don't know what's happening. So we spend a lot of time making sure that people feel comfortable. And so I think the challenge in that, though, is that we don't necessarily have the answers all of the time, and everyone is different. And we've done a few of these now. We've done 30 or 40 of these, so we have a good view of the types of things that we're going to see, and when it comes up, how do we fix it, and how do we make sure it's right for people, and how do they continue working tomorrow when they're not able to today. So yeah, I think the biggest challenge is knowing what people have got. And we're insurance brokers, so we don't expect people to know all the answers.
Yeah, fair enough. How do you go about, like, have you got any concrete examples of how you support people? What types of things would you do when you're embracing that change? Because, it's a common theme on this show.
Yeah.
Organizations, it's the technology's never the problem. It's always making sure the people. I'm not saying people are the problem. That's not what I'm saying. But they're the people. The people are the key to making it successful.
Yeah.
So what types of things do you do to support those people?
Well, when we're integrating a business, in terms of, and I call that out separately to getting a new starter, because it's a little bit more involved to it. But when we're integrating businesses, we spend a lot of time taking some care to discover what they've already got, how do they work, what happens when you do this, what solutions do you use, and we ask loads of open questions to try and help that. That enables us to go away and say, well, we're going to replace that with that, that with that, and that with that. And 9 times out of 10, it doesn't change how the business operate. It might just look a little bit different. So, for example, we don't have file servers anywhere in our business. We tend to use cloud solutions like SharePoint or things like that where appropriate.
Yeah.
And so, to take a business that's been on the same shared drive for the last 20 years and suddenly put that into SharePoint can be quite disruptive if we don't manage that properly. And so in terms of how we manage that and support them through it, we spend time with them. We sit next to them at their desk. They drive. We're not those people that take over the mouse and do it very quickly and just say that's how it works, because it's easy for us as IT to do that. We spend the time with them, making sure they are comfortable, they drive, they get a feel for it, because that's how they're going to learn.
Cool. Okay. Fabulous. Thank you for sharing that, Chris. That's interesting. Now, I guess clearly you spend a lot of time on the onboarding of new businesses and new people. As your journey progresses and as we start looking ahead, what I guess the question is, the real question is, like, what how do you see sort of data and technology shaping the future of your business and your organization, and kind of what role does that play when you're making decisions on acquisition, particularly data? That's where my question's going with that. But how do you see it? Like, how do you see technology and data influencing how you operate in the future?
I mean, data helps us understand what's happening. So we are doing some pieces of work in terms of being a little bit more clever with the data that we've got. We already do a huge amount of work on getting some MI into the right place, and that takes some time, so that our board of directors, business leaders, whoever it is looking at that data, can see data that comes from all of the different systems, regardless of where it comes to. We present that in a Power BI fronted environment, and that does help them. And I can see that continuing to have a big impact on how we conduct our business in the future. And we Power BI dashboards are great, I think, at answering the question that you need to answer. The work that I think we'll have in the future is, how do we get the answers to a question that we don't know what the question is yet? What's the data telling us that we haven't thought to ask? And I think that's going to be the exciting bit in terms of the future. What trends are that we haven't spotted yet?
Have you, so just on that note, have you ever used the quick insights feature in Power BI? Because it's got some really cool stuff there that can help with that.
Yeah, I haven't personally, but yeah, lots of people tell me it's quite useful.
It can be quite useful. So in terms of, like, you alluded to it then, using it to make decisions, or what don't we know that we need to know about our data? That kind of alludes to sort of machine learning, data science, and perhaps, dare I say it, the old acronym that everyone loves, talk of the town, AI.
Yeah,
have you got any plans? Any plans for that, or, like, are you using it currently? What's the plan for that going forward?
Well, I think we are looking at it. It would be silly of any business to not look at it, I think. But we are really clear that ultimately the decisions that we make impact our colleagues, they impact our customers, they impact our business. So what we want to do is make sure that people are using all of those tools sensibly, and putting some guidance around it. We shouldn't just take AI's word for it, for example. And so that's going to be our challenge in terms of rolling AI out. But it's exciting. There's lots of exciting stuff to come out of it, and I'm pretty sure it will change how we use technology again, and hopefully make our lives easier. But we do have to do that in a way that's going to protect people.
Yeah, definitely. So it's clearly on your radar. I guess you haven't got to a rollout stage yet. You maybe perhaps in the planning phase. Of things like Copilot or ChatGPT or whatever.
We've got a few licenses, and we're asking it. We're asking it some questions and see what comes back. And we need to make sure it's appropriate for use. Ultimately, we're a regulated business. We've got to make sure that we're being fair.
Cool, brilliant, awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. So, Chris, that's kind of the difficult questions out of the way. Now, this is usually the fun bit, right? This is the bit I use the most. The kind of last question is I'm going to ask you all about, what advice would you give your younger self, starting out in the IT industry?
Yeah, good question. I would say, and I suppose this goes for people starting out in their career in any industry, really. But I would say, if you're seen to be the person that gets stuff done, that fixes the things, that makes things happen, talks to the right people, gets the answers to the questions, and generally is seen to be someone that moves things forward, you're going to go a long way. And you can only do that, if you talk to people, if you become personable, if you are seen to be someone that listens, and all those things that we all know is important. But in reality, when an incident hits, for example, you can be and and this is typical of IT people sometimes, you can be so resolute in fixing the technical problem that we forget about the people who are sat there wondering what on earth's happening. And so, if you're seen to be the person that's communicating, you are personable, approachable, and you get stuff done, then you're going to go a long way.
Cool. Good advice. Good advice. Well, Chris, that's actually the end of my questions. Thank you very much for coming on and sharing your insights. It's really, really insightful. It's always interesting. I've done a lot of work for insurance companies, and I guess insurance brokerage is somewhat different to that. But I do know it's a big area as well, because I've actually done some work for some brokerages too. But it's clearly an exciting time for your good selves. I guess I was going to ask you some questions around the technology that you use. In terms of have you got? You say you mainly use cloud services. Do you use multiple clouds? Do you have just one? Do you have design principles around it? How do you decide what technology to use? And then that's really probably a question I should have asked earlier on. In truth,
the way that we conduct business at J&G really is about trying not to overcomplicate things. It would have been very easy for IT to say, we're going to do all of this stuff, we're going to put that in that cloud and that over there, and we're going to use this technology. That doesn't help anybody. It feels nice and shiny for IT people, but it doesn't help the business. And so we take the stance all of the time, and actually we challenge ourselves all the time on, are we making this more complicated than it needs to be? Why? What is stopping us just doing X? And so we are cloud first. We can't pertain to be cloud only, because in reality, being acquisitive, that doesn't happen. But we're cloud first, and where we can, we put things in Azure.
Right.
But what we do is we try and make use of services rather than building infrastructure. So we mentioned SharePoint before. It makes no sense to me to have a file server when the requirement from the business doesn't call for it. And we've got examples where we need to do something different. That's fine. That's what we'll do. But on the whole, let's use services that are built to do exactly the task that we're asking it to do. Yeah.
Cool. Well, Chris, you've answered all my questions. You've been a great guest. Thank you very much for coming on. It's been a pleasure having you. For everybody else out there, we haven't had any questions in the comments today, but if we get any through, I'll be sure to send them out. Make sure you hit the old like and comment on the LinkedIn live event as well. But Chris, thank you very much, and for everybody else out there, I'll see you on the next show.